86% of collaborators, leaders, and educators blame poor communication for workplace failures. That's an incredible number. Today, we're going to explore how do we improve our communication skills in the workplace. Now, communication is a set of different conversations, and today I want to talk about focusing 3 different areas that can really improve those communication skills in the workplace. What's more, I also want to offer you a free e-course which looks at emotional intelligence called the Emotional Intelligence Roadmap, and it really maps out for anyone that wants to explore this huge and important phenomena, how they might harness the powers of their emotions to be a better manager and leader. Stay tuned for that, and also the 3 areas we'll explore. So the first area is brevity and clarity. You know, when it comes to communication, brevity and clarity are incredibly important. Now, I work with a lot of leaders, a lot of people around their communication skills and also honing those skills. And I think one of the great problems that many people have is brevity itself. You know, it is easier, believe it or not, easier to speak for 10 minutes than it is for 2. You say, what? Well, because you can lack discipline with that 10 minutes. You can include a lot of different other things. But when you've only got 2 minutes, whoa, then you've got to choose exactly the right content to be impactful. And when it comes to management, leadership, etc., you know, the higher up you get when you're communicating, the less time you get to communicate. And so brevity can be important. You know, when I work with different people, sometimes there's a funny expression I have that when they're going on and on and on, I always say, land the plane. And land the plane is about getting to the point. You know, sometimes we hover and we hover and we hover. I remember about a year ago, I had a flight and we had turbulence. And so one of the problems we had is that the plane couldn't land. And so we kind of did rings around the airport. And sometimes when we communicate, it can kind of be like that. We run rings and rings and rings and we never land. So what we want to try and do is to land the point. Now, how do we do that? We do that through clarity. And today I want to offer you 5 questions that will really help in this first point, which is seeking clarity and brevity. So what are those questions? So number 1 is, what is the purpose of this presentation or this talk or that I'm giving? Because this purpose is really important. Why am I saying what I'm doing? What am I hoping to add? What's the key point that I'm trying to make? You know, some people just talk for the sake of talking. But I think if you're really focused and have put some thought into the purpose and why you are doing it, it really helps with the clarity and also the brevity of what you're saying. The second point is, what points do I need to cover? So what do I need to cover that will give all the information that is needed in the shortest amount of time? You know, that's incredibly important because at times we can bring all this extraneous information that's really not needed. The third question is, who's going to listen to it? Who's in my audience? Now that's an important question because different audiences have different needs. They're well trained in the information, they know the subject matter, and so therefore it's not so much that I'm trying to educate them in the subject matter, but rather I'm trying to make certain points of summary points. For others, we're talking to complete beginners, and so we have to be careful in acronyms that we might use and the language we use that we can bring them along. I mentioned this earlier as well. The higher we get up in the management chain, probably the less time you have. And so most executives are looking for executive summaries. They're looking for a summary. They don't have time to take deep, deep dives into everything. So who is your audience? The fourth question is, how much time do I have? Because time determines everything. If we have 10 minutes, do we have 2 minutes? Both of those look very different. And so really getting an adequate grasp in the time that we have. I also think it's really good to have a plan in sight that if you think you have 10 minutes and all of a sudden you're told you're 5, that you can adapt what you're saying as well. And then the final question is all about questions. What questions can I anticipate? Now, in any presentation, we're also going to be asked some questions, and it's really great to think about perhaps what those questions might be. That can really help us when it comes to formulating some great answers and conveying the information we want to convey. So there's the first point. Clarity, brevity, and those 5 questions will really get you into the clarity and the brevity that you need. Second way to improve your communication skills is really not about what you say, but it's about how you receive information. Yeah, this one's all about listening. You know, I talk about this a lot because it's so incredibly important. Part of the communication act, of course, is the giving, and it is the receiving which is equally important. And so often we spend so much time in practicing what we're about to say, and in practicing the way we'll say it, and in practicing the points, but we never put as much energy into how we will listen to other people. Imagine if we spent the same amount of time into listening as we do into speaking and the practice. Just imagine how the communication process would improve. And so when it comes to listening, of course, it's all your old favorites. Don't interrupt. When a person is talking, give them time. Can we assume that we are going in there with an open mind? Can we bring to the table some objectivity, and so that we're able to listen to what's being said and not what we think is being said? Are we being aware of any triggers that are happening within us which can shut down the way that we listen and how we're listening? And can we really convey to the other person that we are engaged with them in the listening process, to acknowledge perhaps some of the emotions that they're feeling? All of these are critical skills. And believe me, I really think if you want to have more impact as a communicator, if we could spend just more time practicing being better listeners, the impact will be astronomical. And then the final point when it comes to being a better communicator is all about our body language, because our body speaks a language. And if we want to engage with people, it's not just through our voice, and it's not just through the act of listening, but also in all the different elements of our body. And so therefore, some of the things to consider are we warm and friendly? Are we approachable? So whenever it comes to speaking, and whenever it comes to creating this atmosphere or this environment where we want to engage people, people need to know that you're an approachable person. People need to know that you are friendly. And part of that is just the smiling and the eye contact with people. But it's also, say, the use of gestures, conversational gestures. We know that people who use more gestures are more engaging. Also, gestures help us as speakers. People who gesture are able to have better memory and are able to remember the points that they need to make. So how is your body language when it comes to communication? Do you need to ramp it up a little? Are you open? Are you friendly? Are you engaging? Are you smiling? All of those things add to that element. So you have it. When it comes to improving our communication skills, clarity, brevity, listening, and our body language. All of those are elements that can truly help us be a more impactful communicator. Now, I promised you at the beginning that there would be a link to a free e-course called Emotional Intelligence Roadmap. Indeed, you can find it below. I invite you to go there, to explore it, to harness the power of your emotions. And if you've enjoyed this video, I also invite you to click on the next one when we will focus on the critical area of self-awareness, how that can improve our communication.